Hello, I'm Sago, and welcome back to another Mechabellum Replay review. Starting off with the starting specialists, we have Rhino Specialists, and that's really about it. Everything else doesn't look that interesting to me. So yeah, really just Rhino Specialist. Rhino Specialist is the best specialist in the game. And it used to be really between Typhoon Spec and Farseer Spec, since it was 300 supply round 3. But now that they've nerfed those specialists where you get them round 4, everyone's getting 300 supply round 3. So I would say Rhino Specialist, or Rhino is just a better $300 unit on round 4, since it has the level, it's more efficient with the level, and I feel like I get more value, at least when I'm playing aggro, out of the Rhino compared to the Typhoon and the Farseer. Of course, Typhoon is very good aggro unit as well, but I find I don't really lean in. It's like round 4, it's a bit too late for Typhoon, and I'm usually committed to Arclight, so I mean, it's still 300 supply at the end of the day, but anyways, Rhino Specialist, best specialist in the game. We're up against Prince Boji, also known as wOOt. He's currently rated at 2.4 MMR, and he is Fortified Specialist with Sledge Arclight. And I have a pretty bad matchup. I'm not bad matchup, but like the storms aren't that good into the sledges, right? And he's just going to ace and push, so he should have the advantage. Now, I do need to buy Arclights for the crawlers, and honestly, that is the mistake that I made. I ended up going for crawlers, thinking, you know, magically the fangs and the storms will clear the late chat for me, and then that'll be enough to win the round. But looking back, it was supposed to be 2 Arclights. Now, I am optimizing my positioning for the right side, just because for some reason wOOt likes to push the same side every single time for whatever reason. So, I mean, might as well take advantage of that. He's like the only player that does that. But honestly, this starting opener is... It should have been 2 Arclights, and I should have positioned better. I should have actually positioned my storms on the outside, on each side. The reasoning for that is, like, I know wOOt's going to push the right side, but with the Stormcallers on the outside, I will lose this tower, clear the chaff, and then while the debuff is going, he's going to be moving across to my other tower, and that will leave a lot of space for my Stormcallers to clean up the rest. And then, of course, I can just sell the Stormcallers and then start pushing the weak side tower. But so that's already a mistake on my end here, but all good. And as you can see, this is the problem with not going... let me just pause real quick. This is the problem with not going Arclights round 1 is... I mean, I don't know if even placing an Arclight here would even get this job done, but the crawler ends up leveling because I didn't really clear it efficiently. And now if I go for a normal Arclight, which I will anyways, I can't kill this efficiently. It's going to require 2 shots, so we're learning. Now, basically reinforcements, nothing really that interesting. Advanced shield is a nice pickup to have, but... And honestly, with the way my money's going, I probably should have taken it anyways, since I can only deploy 3 Arclights. And this is another problem. If wOOt goes for anti-air, or like a Phoenix round 2, I really won't have an answer to that. So if I went Arclights round 1, round 2, I could go for Phoenix and have an air win, or at least have some DPS on the board. So now I'm kind of behind levels and here, so a lot of tempo going for wOOt. So I spend 350 on units, and I fortify the right tower. Honestly, yeah, fortifying the right tower is better than skipping and getting the advanced shield device, in my opinion, because since he's stacking one side against, like, he's doing an ace and push, fortifications are really good at reducing the debuff time, but also just adds some more tankage to the board. It's like 306, or it's, was it 20k HP? It's pretty efficient for 100. And early, usually they don't have that much DPS to kill this efficiently. Of course, like, I'm a little bit behind in tempo, so that doesn't even matter, but early fortifications are really good against stuffing ace and pushes. Alright, the unit drops are here. For me, it's like an obvious, like, marksman. Fire Badger could be interesting for oil and defense, but I'm not really the biggest fan of Badgers when I'm, like, so far away from the line. Sabertooth is not that efficient into sledgehammers, since it takes forever to kill, like, the whole pack. I could go for, like, a steel ball push on the left side tower if I wanted to, but I do need anti-air and 4 marksman. You can't really go wrong with that. And then if he ends up taking the Sabertooth, which he does, double shot marksman does a decent job at handling it here. So wOOt just keeps stacking the right side as expected. And since he has his tower exposed, I always like to try to punish it. And I usually do that with a wasp. It gives me some flexibility to do jump drive wasp flanks and redeploys back. But it's also, like, wasps are so good at, like, just decent chaff clear, enough to break tower as well. Like, good DPS, decent chaff clear is the benefit compared to, like, a Phoenix pressure, right? And, of course, I have my Rhino come in round 4, so you can add it to the push away from all the sabers. And we add an extra arc light to help out with chaff clear. Got 4 arc lights going, which should be enough. The problem is I'm usually getting stuck on the tanky units first, but we will see how it goes. Yeah, I just need more chaff. Like, wOOt just has more resources on one side, so... And since I didn't position early round 1, he's just overwhelming me. And I'm, like, pretty behind. Not taking too much HP damage, but still, like, it could have been a lot better. I planned or did better moves earlier, right? And of course, like, if Saber's level ahead of the marksman, is going to be even more problems. So things can get really out of control when you're playing against an asym aggro push, right? Like, one little mistake, literally round 1, a small mistake, crawler levels, I'm behind on arc light deploys, and then it just leads to this. Again, it's not too much damage, but he is scaling out of control, I would say. Now, I just want to say I'm sorry for last video. I literally don't know how this happened, but I sped up the recording or the replay, and then for some reason I didn't even realize and or notice that I left it on 2.0, and I didn't turn it back to 1.0 after. So for half the video, literally the thing's on 2x speed, and everyone's like, oh my god, can you not have this 2x video? It was hard to watch, and I literally didn't notice till after people mentioned it, but hey, we learned. Alright, Super Supply, this is what happens when you speed up. Super Supply, round 4, it's pretty much a must pick unless you feel like you can close out the game, since it's like after it takes a couple turns to make your money back and you start having good econ leads. So if you can't close out round 4, or if you don't think you can close out relatively short, then you always take Super Supply round 4. Round 5, you can make the argument for skipping it or not taking it. Just depends on how greedy you are and how the pace of the game is going, but Super Supply is a must pick. Now the Rhino turn comes down. I'm just going to add that to my Wasp push. I put my Rhino on the line because I know wOOt is very greedy and doesn't really punish the weak side pushes. So I just put it on the line because he's not going to defend it. He's just going to stall and missile the half the game. He doesn't always do that, but generally that's how it goes. So we got the leveled storms, which should help with the Sabertooth. We got some more chaff added. And he fortified his tower, but I mean, the Rhino Wasp is still going to take it down pretty efficiently. And we should get tower faster than he will. Now again, this blue crawler is literally like causing so many problems. But we get a debuff ourselves. Allows our Stormcrawlers and Marksmen to clean up the mess. Now I really need a mobile beacon because I should have gotten the second tower before he even touches my first tower, and then it would have been a lot cleaner here, but I mean, you only have so much money you can spend, so ends up being a pretty good turn for me. Now it feels like I'm stabilizing and I'm more so back in the game. All right, mass-produced fortress shows up. Honestly, this card I think actually might just be broken. This card is so disgusting. And it's mainly because of the Fang production Fortress, since like the produced aspect of it isn't doesn't get hindered by the fact that you can still produce the same amount of fangs and the shield's still the same, right? But I don't end up taking it yet. Honestly, I should have just taken it and started like going for Mass Broad Fortress, but I do like to take all the spells since the spells are generally like pretty tempo heavy and better than everything else, all the other econ cards. And I just use it to kill this Sabretooth, help me with some additional DPS. And now I also go for a Arclight Crawler pull. The main reason, like, this can easily be dealt with, but for now it's going to pull 2 crawlers and stall, and which should allow my key army to take on half of his army. So it really just softens the chaff clear on my end. And now I jump drive my Wasp to cover potential Wasp threat and Rhino's threat. The pull you see is doing a lot here. It allows my Marksman and Stormcallers to get earlier locks. Get some DPS going. Man, look at this Rhino on the left. Like 1 HP and it hits my tower. So sad. Of course, like, he enables that because he put like an Arclight Crawler on the flank, or else I would have killed this Rhino, but... So it is like a little bit costly for him to do it for just a 1-turn play, but... Not that much HP on the board going down. We got another negative 50 out of him. That's just the power of the Jump Drive Wasp. Like, he's going to have to missile every turn if that's the route he wants to go for handling it. Since he's like fortifying this to max to level 3 and then covering the other spot that I could do like a Jump Drive Wasp play. Now the unit drops are here. And let's slow it down so it doesn't skip. Some interesting options here. Nothing too spicy. Like, Sandworm could be annoying to deal with. I could go for a Fire Badger oil play, but the oil's not that insane. I mean, it's decent. And Raiden's not really that interesting, so I end up just taking the Phantom Rays. I'm not really a fan of Phantom Rays as like committing to it as a core strategy because they're easily countered by anti-missile device and like a bunch of other units. But I'm just going to use these Phantom Rays. I'm probably going to sell out eventually, but I'm just going to use it for some early tower pressure. And he ends up taking the Raiden for whatever reason. I don't think the Raiden was... I just don't know how to use this Raiden unit. I don't know its space in the meta, and I feel like there's just so many better units to use it for. And I really don't have any units, even if Raiden in theory has places for it, I don't have any units that would even like warrant it. So it was interesting that he went for it here. Now I'm oiling to slow down the push and then making sure my Rhino can get in before him. So it's just more of a like a tower timing type of game, similar to yesterday's video. It's just like the type of approach I like when it comes to defending ASIM pushes. I like to just push the weak side as well because that's what they're vulnerable to, right? Now, of course, I see the Raidens. I'm going to immediately sell out these Phantom Rays not to feed XP, and they're not going to really accomplish too much. Of course, I mean, he doesn't have Raidens on the left side of the board, but... Also note, I used an anti-missile because I have my Rhino on the line, and I know wOOt is very likely to missile my Rhino, which he did. So I do get some value out of that, just to make sure I get early tower timings. Now again, the mass-produced Fortress card shows up, and I end up taking it because this card is just so insane. And he's showing Raidens, and it seems like he's committed because he bought another Raiden. So I end up just immediately committing to Fortress Anti-Air. And my plan from here on out is literally, like, the mass-produced Fortress strat is to spam Fortresses as much as possible with the Fang production and Fortress Anti-Air tech. Because it's 12 Fangs every 30 seconds. And with Fang Shield, that's like, you're doubling into Arclights. You're doubling the amount of Fangs you produce, so... It just, late game, it's one of the best comps in the game, I would say. It's a comp you just don't want to see get online. Now, it does take a little bit to get going, But once you get to like, what, like 7 forts with double tech of whatever sorts, at least with Fang Production, Fang Shield, usually are just far ahead. Now, I do armor the Rhino. I think I did this last turn. I mean, it's just good, efficient stats, 50% on a level 2 unit. And it's not like he has like real DPS on the board outside of this Sabertooth. Now I go for a Jump Drive Wasp play just to punish this tower, since I know he keeps missing it, and we're gonna make sure he keeps missing it to get some value out. I got a Fortified Tower to level 3, since again, like, wOOt just keeps stacking his side, so level 3 is usually where I stop and say this is like a good enough tower for fortifications for most of the game. Now he clicks anti-missile on his Sabertooth, which I think is such a troll tech, but he does it for the Stormcallers, which was like my main DPS for killing these Sabertooths. But like, just the anti-missile is just really bad on Sabertooth. Like, they should probably just buff it to make it where it actually anti-missiles, like the Mustang, right? But then it would be like a little bit interesting. But yeah, I think this play was a little bit troll. But I mean, it's a cheap tech. What is it, like 150, 200? I don't even know. I don't run it. The tech sucks. I mean, it's not like secondary armament is much better of a tech, but so the Raidens end up killing everything, even though I oiled, and that's because I only bought 3 fortresses with end tier. I just need 3 more fortresses with end tier. That's the key. I'm not even trolling. It's a bit of a negative tempo move for me, and I almost die because of it, but if I just keep buying more forts, I don't see how I lose. Now I take the redeployment, because redeployment is just such a nasty card. And I go for a little bit of a spicy play. I don't know if this play is that good looking back, but I go for a Crawler and Jump Drive the Wasp on the flank, since there's no like spawn in time, and just to try to kill the Sabertooth. This is like best DPS on the board. It hits for 22k, so if I can kill it with the Rhino and the Wasp, we'll say that's good enough. But honestly, looking back, this is just a waste. I should have just kept the Rhino and just beaconed it to the other tower, even though there is oil. Bit of a misplay here, but you know, you can't make all the best plays at all the times. So we buy 3 more fortresses, or 2 more fortresses with Fang Shield and Fang Production. So now we have like, just we're scaling now. We got like, we're spamming giants. His Raidens are gonna not have enough DPS to kill, and we're gonna have so much stall with the chaff that it'll buy time for all the anti-air barrage to kill the Raidens. And of course, he doesn't have the best chaff clear for Fang Shield, which is, I mean, it's a hard problem to solve anyways. So he should be looking okay. And he just techs further into the chain on the Raiden, which I really don't know what it accomplishes, but that's just what you do with Raiden, right? Also note that I am missing out a lot of the key chaff so that my forts and marksmen can get some early locks on. I think that's very important, especially on the shallow flank, just to get rid of this before the chaff. If you can get rid of the main shallow flank pressure before the chaff comes in, I think that's definitely very worth it. And honestly, like, late in the game, missiles are very good, since, I mean, the game's going to close out shortly, so the econ deficit isn't as big a deal, and it allows you to block into key units. So especially against a push, missiles are really good. Of course, anti-missile doesn't actually stop on the line missiles, by the way, in case you're wondering. It's that bad. Alright, and I just get another, like, perfect drop for my mass broad fortresses, Mustangs, to help with additional chaff clear, and also just to be chaff of their own, on top of, like, having some additional DPS for the air. So it's like pretty obvious pick, and it makes sense that wOOt also matches that. I was more so worried about him doing the Vulcan with the oil, so that is something of a concern. Fortress Barrier is a little bit too expensive, considering I just want to keep buying more forts. So I will just be shielding, going for Mustang range, and buying some more forts. Which, I mean, that's just the core strategy. I kind of already committed to it. That's how the mass-produced fortress strat goes. So why would I stop? Just a bunch of missile spam to try to slow down this Rhino and my Wasp play, but I think at this point I should just win, because Raidens don't have the DPS to kill fortresses. And of course, he doesn't have like the chaff clear to deal with like 1 billion shield fangs. So I just like make sure my left side push is pretty strong in case he does any like shenanigans. I had 1 Mustang there to assist the push, and then I keep my last 2 Mustangs at the very back. And of course I shield at the last second just in case there's any like oil Vulcan plays. Because that would like probably maybe win the game for him here. Also, the oil probably would have landed because Raiden chain, if it all shoots at once, just gets through. And just look at that. Like, he just can't clear the shield fangs. Even though he has Mustangs. There's just so many fangs. You just get to the point of the game where you just win. If 7 forts with double tech, you win game. That's just, I think that's just how it works. I think it's a bit of an oppressive strategy. But a very close game. I was at like 308 HPs. But the one turn I did take a bunch of damage was the turn we were setting up the fortress spam, which generally how it works is the turn that forts come down is a turn where you take a little bit of a tempo loss, but once you get it going with the techs, double techs mainly, like fortress anti-air for the Raidens and fang production just for the chaff, then you get going. So pretty interesting match. I would say I really like playing against wOOt. More so after they nerfed boats, because playing wOOt during the boat meta jump drive boat meta was not fun in my opinion. It's just so stressful, but I do really like defending players like wOOt. Now, I made a lot of mistakes in the early game. Mainly the round 1, I would say, is the most important round because that put me behind on the arc lights and on the anti-air. But outside of that, I would say the marksman drop was a good pickup into whatever he was doing, and I needed anti-air. I think the Phantom Rays was fine. I didn't, like, honestly, I didn't expect someone to take the Raiden. I didn't think the Raiden was that good. But also, like, I was just planning to sell it anyways outside of the tower pressure. And yeah, we just abused mass-produced Fortress. And we spammed Fortress, and that's just how it goes. Like, Fortress, in these defensive or aggressive matches, it does feel like Fortress spam is like the go-to. Obviously, it depends on this, if you have the space to do it and if it's good to get into, but if it, like most games, it does feel like Fortress spam is the optimal line, just because like the fang production again, like how do you kill shield fangs? Like in theory, killing shield fangs isn't that hard. It's like Mustang HE, it's fire storms. Well, you can't really go fire storms because anti-missile's too strong, but like Warcrime Vulcans can be good. Or like HE spiders can be good. The problem is more so that it's just so efficient that you're spamming one unit that solves a lot of your problems. And let's just say in the case of the spiders or the Mustangs with HE, you kill all the fangs, the first wave of fangs, then you get locked onto the fortress, and then your melters is locked onto the new wave of chaff that comes in. So sometimes the summoning timings can just mess everything up. So, and on top of that, like I'm spamming one unit, you have to spam a variety of units to counter my board. So I'm just way more efficient, and eventually late game, if the game goes long enough, you just win. So I mean, this strat is probably maybe a little bit problematic for the game, but it's a strat. If you do see someone doing the strat, I think you just have to close out the game very fast. Or maybe Mustang Scorpion, assuming you have Scorpions online, magically can get there, but from scratch, I think it's a very hard strategy to solve. So it's either you close the game out early or you lose, I think. But yeah, anyways, interesting match. Your mass-produced Fortress OPOP. Thanks for watching.